Well, a new report card closing out President Obama's third year in office, and it is not necessarily all that stellar. A group of top economists are giving the president a mediocre grade on his stewardship of America's finances. Here you can see it. 0 rated him excellent, 5 good. Hi. There's Simon, too. We'll put that back up in a minute. There we go. 18 fair and 13 poor. Joining me now to discuss it, Simon Rosenberg. Here he is, director of New Democrat Network and a former Clinton campaign advisor, and Guy Benson, a radio talk show host and political editor of townhall.com, who I guess I will be playing the role of Guy Benson today. There he is. Hi, Guy. Sorry,
hey, Megan.
having some issues, I guess, here today. Thank you both so much for being here. All right, so let me ask you whether you think this is fair. Let's put the graphic back up once again so they can see the grades, because this is all. It reminds me back in the school where you'd get it, the A, the B, the C, the D. If you do the equivalent, 0 A's, 5 B's, 18 C's, 13 D's. Guy, is that fair?
Well, I think 14 million Americans might want to add a category, which is F. And I think Democrats, even doing their very best spin job, maybe could give him a C. So D sounds about right. And that's got to hurt for a president who once gave himself a solid B+ not too long ago, and who constantly, Megan, seems to cite this mysterious group, a consensus of economists from across the spectrum to justify all of his economic policies. Those same economists, now we know, aren't necessarily big fans of those policies.
Simon, he raises an interesting point that the president gave himself a solid B+ after his first year in office. You look at those numbers, it doesn't appear that these economists agree with that.
Look, I think the president's economic record is mixed. I don't think this is big news. I think we do know, however, that there's much more going right than is often talked about on these shows. We see corporate profits are at an all-time high. The stock market is still holding very well. We see exports increasing out of the United States at a rapid rate. We see high expectations of GDP growth next year. The economy looks like it's getting better. So, things are mixed. The unemployment is too high. The housing market is too weak. There are real problems in the economy, but things could be a lot worse. Things are improving, and there are big parts of the economy that are doing very well. The president's going to have a mixed record next year, and I think it's why this election is going to be more about what we're going to do than what we have done. And I think the president will be on strong ground next year when we get there.
Guy, the president talks about some of the issues that Simon just raised as having inherited the housing problem, as having inherited, when he took office, unemployment was high. Of course, it went higher, but he inherited a lot of these problems, and he's just been digging us out of the ditch, he says, that the Republicans dug themselves. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I understand what Simon's trying to do. He's trying to say this is about the future. This is going to be an election that's a referendum on the current president of the United States. And sure, he inherited a tough situation. The housing bubble burst thanks to a lot of policies that his own party put in place. But he did have a tough spot when he got in here. You have to look at his signature policies and what they've done. He had an $825 billion stimulus measure that has failed on its own terms. He had a housing so-called fix that even the New York Times admits was a complete failure. $4 trillion plus added to the national debt, the first ever national credit downgrade, and a health care bill that no one wanted that is already breaking its central promises. This is the record that the president will try to defend. He can't, which is why we're going to see, I think, a vicious attack campaign from the Democrats in 2012.
Simon, these same economists that were asked, which of the Republicans do you like? Who do you think would do the best job managing the economy? 2/3 of the economists named Mitt Romney. Although they weren't able to really sort of back it up with specifics that Mitt Romney had done professionally. They knew that he'd been in the private sector. They knew that he'd done a few things. He's a technocrat. He's not an ideologue. He's got a real-life history in business. How much will that play in an election if it's between Mitt Romney and Barack Obama? Mitt Romney's real-life business experience versus the president's?
Well, I think what's going to matter more is what Mitt Romney is saying that he's going to do. And I think if he continues to embrace a failed ideological approach to the economy that was essentially responsible for getting us into the mess that we are today, and talks about protecting tax cuts for the wealthiest people and cutting for everybody else, I don't think he's going to be able to get the Republicans back in the game. Remember, Megan, despite all the problems the president's had, he's beating all the Republicans in the current polls. In some polls, he's up above 50% now against the Republicans. He's not in bad shape. The economy could be better, but it's not, we're not in depression or recession level circumstances right here. And I think the question is going to be for the Republicans is, do they have a plan that sounds credible to the American people that can make things better? Today, they don't have that. And I think that's going to be the big, in some ways, the big drama of 2012, which is, can the Republicans get back in the game on the economy?
Why do you say no, Guy? Because Simon's right that the president in these head-to-head matchups continues to poll very well against most of these Republicans.
Right. It depends on which Republican and which poll. I think there's a Rasmussen poll out today that has Romney leading the president by 6 points. There have been other polls that have showed Newt Gingrich even leading the president. So it depends. And the big one, the AP poll that came out last week, showed that 52% of Americans don't believe that this president deserves a second term and don't believe that the American public wants 8 years of President Barack Obama. Now, I think Simon's right that the Republican Party has to put forward a plausible and credible alternative. It's not Barack Obama against a cardboard cutout. It's Barack Obama against somebody. And we haven't even had a single vote cast yet. It starts next week in Iowa, and there will be a nominee eventually, and there will be very sharp contrast between a forward-looking agenda from the Republican Party and this president's failed policies.
Well, and then as soon as they have a nominee, it's going to be game on. Then it's going to get really interesting. Then you guys will actually have some real candidates to talk about on both sides. Listen, thank you both so much for being here.